Hello, everyone. Hi, B. Hi, Ian.
Good evening. Hello.
Are you ready?
I wish I could play the piano.
Why don't you learn?
Well, Nicola won't let me buy one. She says no. Nicola says no.
I'm not saying anything. If she says no, she says no. That's it.
Yeah, can't. Not got room for one.
Well,
Need one of those little mini. Can't you get like mini keyboards that are pianos? And you can.
Yes, you can. You can. You definitely can. I've looked into this.
There you go, Nicola. That's Christmas sorted.
Yep.
All right. So today's episode is part 2 on our special on limiting beliefs. And I hope you listened last week where we spoke about some common limiting beliefs and we spoke about how these are formed. So today we're concentrating on overcoming them. And we need Belinda here because she's got some great suggestions on how we can overcome those blasted limiting beliefs. Right.
Okay.
So we're gonna go straight into it today, and I'm going to ask. I think let's start with B. Welcome back. You were on holiday.
Thank you.
How dare you leave us?
Well, I brought the sun back, so you should be grateful.
Well, thank you. We are. So
I'm not. I'm a sweaty mess.
Oh,
there's always
that's
one
TMI.
complainant, isn't there? Always one complainant.
I'm disgusted.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think
Sorry.
we've had an Ian Sweaty story before.
Yeah.
Back then.
Have we? Not when I was on your.
Etched in my memory, something to do with Milo and a puddle on your back.
Oh yeah. That's right. Yeah.
That's it. 3 strikes and you're out. Okay. Oh right. Okay. B. Now,
Yes.
limiting beliefs, a big thing for anybody involved in coaching.
Yes.
Almost one of the first things you learn about, and pretty much everyone's got them somewhere, whether they know it or not.
Absolutely.
So, starting with you, and what would you say when you think about a limiting belief, perhaps of your own, or maybe somebody that you've worked with? What would you say, just jumping in, is your first instinctive thing to do?
The first thing you have to do is identify it. Okay. You've got to identify it. And like you said, sometimes it's easy. And other times you have no idea that belief is holding you back because it's possibly something that you've always believed. And it could be right from a very young age. And it could have been ingrained in you from a very young age without you even realizing. So I think the first thing is identification. And I think then from there, it's a case of how are you going to deal with it? But of course, that depends on the person because everybody learns differently. Everybody changes things differently. So you've got to identify, but I think also the next thing is you've got to want to change it. You've got to want to actually overcome it because if it's something that's been ingrained for a while, it's tough. It's not going to happen overnight. If you think about it, so I always liken it to brushing teeth. We learned to brush our teeth when we were like so high. And we still do it now. Well, hopefully you still do. Otherwise I'm not coming anywhere near. We do it twice a day, okay? And that maintains our teeth, right? But reality is, if we tried to break that now, that would be a really hard routine to break. And so if you think about a limiting belief, if it started way back, to actually break it, it's not going to be an overnight thing. So you've got to be sort of invested in wanting to do it and realizing how it's held you back and what it stopped you doing along the way. And then I think from there on in, for me, it's overcoming it by, so I'm trying to give an example really. So, okay, I coached a client who came to me with body image issues, and my immediate thought was, God, she's beautiful. She's slim, she's beautiful. And everybody thinks that, body image issues affect bigger women. That's absolute rubbish. Okay, it affects every woman, because every woman has a habit of talking, giving herself negative self-talk, which creates limiting beliefs. Okay, and she came to me, and it was some of the stuff that was said, and I was like, wow, I can get now, I understand it. And then to break it was tough, but she was committed to breaking it, because she was so fed up of her low self-worth and what that had done. And this had been going on since she was a teenager. She'd just chosen horrible men time and time and time again. And so she was invested in changing, because she was at an age where she really wanted to find the right person, be with a good person, and settle and have a better life. And so there was lots of different work we did. Absolutely. And I'm quite happy to share some of that stuff, the different things we've tried. But like I'm saying, you need to be invested in it. You need to want to change it. And you need to see the possibility after you change it. So visualize what it would be like if you didn't have that limiting belief, and you changed it into an empowering belief, what that would feel like. So you talk about visualization, Dee, and one of the things I try and do with a client once they've identified it is say, right, okay, work out some steps to work on it, but let's just take that away, put the new one in place, and then tell me what that visualization feels like, what you want to feel like when you get there, how, because I think if you can visualize it, if you can feel it and you get excited about it, you invest in it and you do it.
And also that visualization takes you through to the end of the process. So right now it's hard and it
Yes.
hurts and it's
Yeah.
difficult, but you're visualizing and you're regularly visualizing. I mean, I don't mean just once a day,
No.
one time. You're doing it daily, several
Yeah.
times a day sometimes, and you're putting yourself at the end of that journey, of that
Yeah.
challenge that you set yourself.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you. Ian?
Hello.
Hello.
Ian,
Let's
are you
hear
with
your
us?
what's your view on visualization, Ian? Because I know B's into it like I am, and but I've never really heard anything from you on the subject. Is it not in your?
So, from a personal use perspective, I don't practice visualization much. What I do is I've created a vision for myself and what my future looks like. But then I have to have it in front of me. And so, as an example for me, I got a picture right on the wall there. So it's in front of me every single day. And I've got those little things in the background which remind me of things that I want again in the future. So that's my process for kind of the visualization. So it's not much of a practice as such. It's just having that constant reminder in front of
Well,
me
it is
every
because it's a
single
vision board.
minute of every single day, really.
It is because it's a vision board. It's your idea of
Yeah,
a vision
yeah.
board, isn't it? So, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a physical thing rather than a head thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's in my head, but then I get it out and so I can see it.
Yeah.
For me personally, it just makes it a little more real when I can like literally see it there in front of me.
Yeah. And you, Dee, have you got any thoughts on that?
On visualizing, I do think there's power in it. I really do. Even if you don't feel it to start with, and I am late coming to this sort of thing because I've only really started to discover about visualization and in the last few years, and I do think that there's power in it, even if it's just giving yourself 10-15 minutes a day to relax and put yourself in a nice place, because you do that regularly. After a few times of doing it, your body changes. If the way you feel about yourself and your future, it can't help but, because you're just listening to empowering, positive, hopeful things the whole time. And that hope, we're nothing without hope. So the visualization puts it in your head. And also what that does is I find that it carries over into life as well, where I might have a limiting belief or a client might have a limiting belief. That visualization starts to incorporate finding evidence.
Mm.
So, I might think, oh, I'm not good enough to train to run a marathon, and then I'll do the visualizing, and I'll start to see myself running that marathon. I don't actually see myself running a marathon, but right. So
I was quite impressed, MD. Because
I'll not tell you what I was thinking.
visualizing me
I was like,
running a
fuck
marathon is.
that. Fuck that.
I'm in Ian's camp.
no, so I'm not doing
Absolute
that.
nut
But
job.
anyway, no, I was just going to say that
Yeah.
visualizing. I'm at the end of the finish line at some point in the future. So what happens is, where I've got all this evidence of, oh well, I went to the gym and I ran for 5 minutes on the treadmill and I flaked out, and that's evidence that I can't do it. But then I'll think, well, actually, the time after that I ran for a little bit longer, and that's evidence that's starting to to dispel
Mm.
the first evidence. So if you've got a limiting belief from years and years ago, it's going to take a lot of evidence finding to counteract the damage of all those years that you have only been listening to the evidence that's supporting your limiting belief.
Mm. Yeah,
There's,
absolutely.
there's it's a good thing the sports, is it analogy or anecdote?
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
anecdote, analogy,
Analogy? One of
metaphor,
the two.
not metaphor.
Mm.
Um, because you hear a lot in sports about people like professional athletes visualizing the game and different
Yeah.
scenarios in the game of whatever game it is that they're an athlete in, and they go through it like the
Boxing.
night before the game, and they
Yeah.
run through what they're going to do in the game and how they're going to beat a certain defender and all this kind of stuff. So it is really quite powerful.
It
You
helps
get that
peak
muscle memory as
performance.
well, don't you? Sorry,
Mm.
B, go ahead.
It helps for you to have peak performance. So in
Yeah.
whatever let's just say it's the next thing you're going to do in the day, and you're maybe a little bit nervous about it. So maybe you've got a slight limiting belief there, or you're a little bit uncomfortable about it. To actually use that visualization technique gives you you go into it with what I would call peak performance, because you're
Oh,
already like preempting how it could go, and then you're sort of using that to steer it in the direction that you want it to go. But with limiting beliefs as well, a lot of it's in the wording we use. Okay, and I was reading something recently that really shocked me, and it's much higher in women. Negative self-talk, which is limiting beliefs. Okay, this it's sort of, well, they negative self-talk builds up limiting beliefs. Okay, because the more you tell yourself the same thing, the more that becomes a belief, because your brain is this powerhouse that believes everything you tell it, basically. And I was reading a thing recently that when surveyed, 70 to 80% of women talk negative self-talk on a daily basis, right? And they are telling themselves that they don't look good enough, or they're not achieving enough, or they're not good, and all those things. But a lot of it's in wording. And one of the things, when I'm helping people with limiting beliefs, and we do it a bit at the time, is I will always listen to their limiting beliefs, and then we take the one that's most important to them, the one that's really they feel is really holding them back. And there'll be a key word in that sentence they'll say to me. So it'll either be I can't,
mm,
or I won't, or I'm not good enough, or there'll be that. So what I do, rather than asking them to remember that, I try to ingrain into their head, and I get them to keep saying it over and over again, what the sentence begins with. So if it's I can't, I get them to keep saying I can't in their head over the course of the session. And then I send them away and say to them, this week, every time a sentence comes into your head that starts I can't, you have to stop and change it to I can, because. And it's amazing when you just ask people to focus on just one or two little words rather than the
mm,
whole belief. Just say to them, right, okay. So, and I keep, like I said, I keep ingraining it into their brain, which is, it sounds like it's a bad thing to do, but it's not, because
mm,
otherwise they'll carry on with the negative self-talk. Because what they were saying in this survey is actually women don't even realize they're doing it. It's
Love.
become such part of their daily life, they don't even realize when they're doing it. So it's like, how do you break that? And how do you break it, like, make it a little bit easier for people, not so difficult? And I think, homing in on key words that they use a lot. I can't is obviously one of the biggest ones, but, or I won't be able to, or, it's all the negative stuff. Get them to home in on that word, and then you say to them, right, every sentence for the next, the next week, every time you start a sentence, I want you to stop and think, how can I make that a positive? Like, so change it to I can, so the opposite to whatever there is. And I tell you what, it's amazing how quickly that starts to get ingrained in their brain. And then you can tackle any limiting belief that comes up with that sentence beginning.
I love
Just
that.
something I do.
Pure gold. I love I love that. But also adding on top of that, when they start saying I can instead of I can't, their brain has to compute
Yeah.
an answer, a sentence, the rest of that sentence. So I can't run a marathon. I can train and run a marathon next year. Right?
Exactly.
So you're
Yeah.
thinking, you're not just flipping it over, you're actually even thinking of a solution as you're going.
Yeah.
So fantastic. I love it. I love it. Well done.
I was going to say pretty much exactly the same then about that solution bit. So, but you stole it from me. So.
I stole it. All right, let's start with
Glad I could contribute there. It's funny. It's funny you say that. With that self-talk. So, I was on a call recently, and they pointed out to me that, Ian, you call yourself an idiot a lot. And I didn't even notice.
Yes,
And you do.
Stop it.
Yeah.
So I've been trying to catch myself doing that now lately, and it's around certain types of
topics or
like certain type of topics. Yeah, and I'm like, oh, for God's sake, Ian, you idiot!
Last
I
week,
usually had the F-bomb in there, but
no. Last week, Ian, when you actually were talking about yourself, do you remember what you called yourself?
no.
No.
He called himself a catch.
Oh yeah, well, I mean that's also true.
So you can swap.
Both things can be true at the same time, Dee.
Oh right, okay. So this question is going to Ian now. Okay, Ian, how much does growing your competence impact overcoming limiting beliefs?
Massively. So I've got a really good example of this. So when I was in my project management role, back in the old 9 to 5, I was a junior member of staff before I went into project management, and then I was doing project coordination, and then got the promotion into project management, given my first project, and I was just kind of left to it. I mean, you go through like a mentorship, and so I went to a couple of meetings with the project manager who was kind of my mentor, and so I was essentially learning how to run meetings and stuff. But those were like meetings with 1 or 2 people, right? And my very first one on my own had 15 people in there, and they're all directors and owners of this company, and I'm like, oh my God, when you're just absolutely breaking it. It was one of those like, I cannot do this. They're going to be like, who is this little joker thinking he can manage this? That's what was going through my head at the time. Whereas now, because I've done it so many times, because you do that once and then, next week got another project, kick that one off, and then you're back into the same situation again. And they're all however many people and however many important people in those meetings are important. But yeah, the more you do things, the more your confidence grows and the more your competence grows as well. And that competence builds. It's kind of like a cycle, isn't it? That you go through. It's almost like practice makes perfect, right? But practice builds competence, which builds confidence to allow you to kind of step into and away from that limiting belief. And now, I mean, just put me in front of however many people, I just don't give two things. I do a lot of swearing tonight. I'm sorry, but yeah, and then I'd be absolutely fine running a meeting with whoever and however many people. It just does not bother me anymore, and that's all because of that practice, competence, confidence cycle.
Yeah. Lovely.
Actually, Dee, you've had to overcome a limiting belief while we've been doing this coaching. I mean, I know we've all had to overcome a few. I know that we've all had, in the coaching realms. But I was thinking about when you had that talk, that ladies' wellness talk, and you got yourself in such a stew over it. And
tell them that.
I mean, go on, no, you did initially, and that's right. So go on, talk about it. Tell them how you got over it.
Well, I agreed to do a talk to a group of ladies in a club that I am a member of locally. So it was face to face. It wasn't hidden behind a camera or a computer or anything. And I said yes because I thought, oh, what an exciting opportunity. And I am a, say yes kind of girl. And then I sat back and thought, oh my God, what we're going to do. And remember, I talked to you guys about it. And so I did a few things. I practiced. I wrote it all out. I practiced. I learned. So there's the practice element that Ian was just talking about. And then there's the learning element, all come together for your competence, to grow your competence. So I looked at where there were gaps in my knowledge on what I wanted to talk about. And I learned, and I practiced, and I drove Julian, my partner, nuts because he knew it backwards. He probably knew it better than I did. I was reading it. I was just sort of saying it to him, reading it to him, and then I tried different things. So I tried reading the whole thing. I recorded myself. Looked dreadful. I tried bullet points, and just sort of then talking, and then ended up waffling and going on. And so, it was trial and error. And thinking about it now, it was fine. It all worked out well, but I forgot to mention quite a few things. But it happens. And I watched videos. I watched other people doing it. And because you've touched on this before, B, that perfectionism in us all, I wanted it to be as good as it could be. And thankfully, I didn't fall flat on I was about to say the other bum word. So, I didn't fall flat on my bum. And I got some good...
The other bum word.
And the thing is, if I remember rightly, you came when we saw you or came on a call afterwards, you were so excited by the fact you'd done it. You wanted to do more. You were, and yet, turn back the clock a few weeks in the run up. You're like, why did I agree to do this? Oh my God, it's going to be crap. I'm not going to be able to do this. You had all these beliefs, yeah. And actually, like you said, you missed out a few things, but did it really matter? The essence of it didn't. The talk went well. You enjoyed it. The group enjoyed it. So, win-win. And we often build up something in our brain. I think this is the problem with limiting beliefs. We build it and build it and build it. And then we get, oh my God, it's going to be awful. Rather than taking a step back and going, okay, so this is what I've got to do. Yeah, I'm a little bit scared. It's a little uncomfortable for me. So what do I need to do to make it comfortable for me? What do I need to do to make this go well so I feel good about it? But without becoming too perfect about it. Because you could script something out, but if you read from a script, let's be honest, nobody's going to listen. They're going to be bored. Interaction, answering people's questions. We all worry that we're not going to have the answers. Well, if we don't know the exact answer, be honest. What's the matter with being honest and go, do you know what? I haven't come across that. Or if you have, your answers might not be what they want, that might not resonate with some people, that resonate with others. But I think, I think that's really, you talking about it and the way you were beforehand. And then afterwards, it's a bit like people trying to go on social media live, right? Or even video. They build it up into this massive thing that it's going to be awful, right? And I think one of the reasons they do that is they worry about the kickback from other people on social media. Okay. And do you know what? I've learned so many good things about that, because I was worried about that. Not for coaching. I had to go on social media, as you know, during lockdown, and I
Yeah.
had to model clothing. I mean, seriously, I'm not, I'm a bigger girl. And at that point, I'd worked a lot on myself, but still scared about putting myself out in the public eye. I'm really worried that I would get some really mean comments. And I wondered how strong my what I'd built was, would that be able to handle it? And actually, the majority of comments are absolutely fine. You get lovely comments and nice comments, and you're always going to get odd ones. And I remember, and I love this analogy from Jermaine. I was on, I don't think it was a training. I think it was a one of his Sunday nights ones he does with TCM. And he said he gets nasty comments sometimes on his videos and his posts and whatever. And he said what he puts on them, which I thought was amazing. And he said, I always go back and put, thank you very much. I love you too. I mean, what can anybody say to that? There's just nothing you can say to that. And I thought, how good is that, to use the power, your power, to not engage in that rubbish conversation? Because there's always going to be someone who's saying it because they're either jealous, they're bored, they've got nothing better to do, or they're projecting what they're feeling, which is often the case. And then to go back with something so positive, what are they going to do?
People are not everybody's going to like everything that you do.
No.
And it's worth remembering that when you're in that sort of situation, because I did sort of think, in what we do and what we talk about, it's not black and white.
No.
So it's not black and white. People will disagree with you. People will disagree with me, and I will disagree with them. And that's okay, because that's how this business works, But I mean, maybe not quite so much in your line, Ian. There are rights and wrongs and blacks and whites.
Not really. No, not really.
All right, okay.
Because there's so many for what I do. So obviously, I focus more on the things before you start a business. So like all the purpose, vision, and all that kind of stuff, and then focus on the mindset side of things, and then just help them with strategies for the business side. So the business side for me is secondary. It's what I'm really helping people with. But there's so many different strategies out there for people.
Yeah.
It's not a case of it's black and white. There's so much noise out there, which is kind of why I help them. Really, I want to kind of help them get away from that noise and kind of get a focused, aligned business to them. So no, I wouldn't say it's black and white on my side. One thing I wanted to kind of pick up on was I can't remember exactly what it is you were talking about, B, but it was about the almost getting uncomfortable, right? Getting out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable. Some of the best things that will happen for you are on the other side of the most uncomfortable moments. And the way I describe this to some of my clients is, I went on a skydive, right? And the entire way up in that plane, and this was filmed as well, so I could literally share this with you, right? The entire way up on that plane, they were talking to me as we were in the plane, and I was just looking dead ahead like that, and they were over here. My head was just shaking with so much nerve and anxious and fear and everything. I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, can't wait for this. Absolutely bricking it. But then as soon as you get out of the plane, it's the most incredible feeling ever. Like, can't describe it. So that fear, you have to kind of walk head into sometimes, and you've got to be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think that's a kind of important one to help along the limiting belief ones in terms of getting over them.
Well, can I just ask you, Ian, would you mind putting that in the members area on YouTube, so that if anybody wants to see it, they can sign up and they can see Ian?
Yeah, well, I will.
Saying yes, yes,
It's
yes, I'm fine.
it's on a
Like,
DVD down there somewhere.
right, fish it out. Okay, now if you want to get into the members area on our YouTube channel, you just need to. Sorry, there's a plug coming in here, guys. Right, you just need to send an email to Ian, and he'll pop you on there. That's all you need to do. Okay, so then there were two. Ian has had to go off and do some work stuff. I mean,
Mm.
it's not as if this isn't work stuff, right, B?
Well, clearly some of us take it more seriously than others.
Absolutely. Okay, he's gone now. So it's just us. We were all right.
Yeah. We can do what we like now.
We can make it all woman, female related or not. Yeah. I mean, I love this conversation about limiting beliefs and overcoming it because it's so positive,
It is.
and you surround yourself by positivity, and that just having a positive mindset has got to have an impact on the things that you believe. And going back to what you said about changing I can't into I can, it just becomes easier,
Yeah.
just starting on that positive and surrounding yourself by positive people.
I was just about to say that when you picked that up, when you said that, I was thinking, do you know what? Some of your limiting beliefs are because of other people.
Mm,
Okay. And they could be people that are still in your life today, that tell you you couldn't do that or you're not, yeah, I mean, people can, without realizing it, and parents, I think, do this quite a lot and they don't mean to. It's like a
no, they
protection
don't.
mechanism, right?
Yeah,
But you can limit how your child grows and how they go out into the world, if you're not careful, by knocking back their ideas that might be a little bit way out there or a little bit different or a little bit uncomfortable. I certainly experienced that. But my parents, it wasn't meant that way. It was that, I was the youngest of three and I wanted to do, I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to do all that,
mm,
dancing and amateur. And they didn't understand that. That wasn't a real job in their
yeah,
era. So for them to say, actually, that's not going to work, is it, realistically, whatever. But at the age, I was only 16, I believe my parents knew everything and were
of
the font
course.
of all knowledge. And they'd protected me my whole life. They'd given me a really nice upbringing. So you don't think to question it. And I'm not knocking them now but if I'd have been stronger maybe and have said, actually, no, this is what I'm going to do, I think they
Yeah.
would have supported me, absolutely. But I didn't feel that it was the right thing because someone was telling me, actually, that's not going to work. And I think, you as you grow, I'm aware now of some of the things that those people, I mean, not, but some of the things people say to me that are actually quite limiting, but I
Mm,
don't take them on board. So, like you said, surrounding yourself with positive people who support what you're
yeah.
trying to achieve, actually really helps. Because if you're around people who are pushing and saying, no, don't do it, no, don't do it, no, don't do it, unless you're really strong, you might
Yeah.
decide to say, actually, no, I won't do it. They might be right.
Yeah.
And depending on how strong you are, depends on how much you push. So,
Well, I
you
think even the strongest person who is constantly being bombarded with, oh, don't you think you've tried enough now, or do something,
mm,
change your tactics, do this, even the strongest person is going to crumble at some point because
yeah,
we are social animals and we listen to people, we're influenced by the people that we love,
absolutely.
that we
Mm,
respect, that we,
mm,
have regard for. So I think, it's really important that there are people in your life that you can't get rid of,
of
family or
course.
whatever. So you've got to put in some coping mechanisms of saying, well, okay, well, maybe I won't talk to them about it. I won't
Exactly. Yeah.
look to expect some motivation or some
Support or
support from them. Yeah,
mm,
and make yourself stronger and find that elsewhere if you need to.
mm,
If you've got a belief that you want to do something, say you have an empowering belief or you have a positive belief that you want to do something, and somebody in your realm that you can't get rid of is negative about that, what are you going to do?
Mm,
You have to find it somewhere else, because
mm,
otherwise, like you with your acting and your dancing, and you were younger, so obviously you're a different person then, but
yeah.
um if that were your situation now, you could say, okay, well, look, these are my parents, I love them, they love me, but we disagree, so I'm going to try find that from somebody else.
Mm, yeah.
And you can do that at this age. It's
Mm,
very young. When you're 16 it's difficult, but
mm.
sort of
Yeah, as you
now.
get older, you tend to get a little bit stronger. And also, I've learned by doing it in the right way, you don't upset people. There's no need to have confrontation. There's no need to have upset. It's just being honest with yours. But it's also like I talk a lot about being authentic and being honest with yourself. And that
Yeah.
can be really tough when you don't have support around you, because you start to mold yourself into what those people want you to be, or what they want you to say, or what they want you to do. And I think that's the one thing, alongside everything I've worked on the belief that even if I do something and it doesn't work out as I expect, it's
Mm.
not, it's I haven't failed. I've learnt by it. Okay. And I might do it again, but I'll do it differently. Or I might not do it again because actually it didn't work like I expected. But, you know, what I wouldn't do in that situation is discuss what I was going to do with somebody who at the end would say, well, I told you so.
Exactly.
Okay. So then I would, discuss it with someone else. So it is about choosing your people and choosing what you share with those
Yeah.
people. If it's going to empower you to go for it, share it. And if it's going to be something that somebody's trying to protect you, maybe, because people do it for a protection as well. They try and
Mm.
keep you safe. Then maybe don't share it. So you're right. It is about who you choose to share things with, but it is also about building up your resilience, I think,
Yeah.
and that's really important when you're growing, overcoming limiting beliefs, trying to find your way to wherever it is you're going, or understanding yourself, or whatever it is you're doing. You've got to build up that resilience.
Yeah.
You can't crumble at the first hurdle.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
No.
So when you're building that resilience and you're working on that, you have to take small steps. So
Mm,
you can't suddenly, I can't suddenly run a marathon tomorrow. So,
no.
but I may be able to in a year's time, if I take small steps. And
Yeah.
I think that works in a lot of situations,
Yeah. Yeah.
and every time you take a small step, your competence increases because you've done it, so you've learned something,
Hmm.
and your confidence increases, and you get
Yeah.
better at it, and then
Mm.
you feel better about it, and then you do something more,
But also, then
and
it
it's just
increases your self
oh,
worth, which is your
yes,
internal. And as
yes,
soon as you get stronger inside, actually you can handle so much more the stronger you build your internal. You can
yes,
work on your external, and that's really important. That's your esteem and your confidence and all of that. But working on your internal dialogue is
mm,
really like gaining that really strong sense of self-worth, that is based on your internal and not based on any physical attribute. And that's really, like you say, it's really important. And it's like a snowball effect, isn't it?
yes,
I think
yeah,
like once you start seeing positives in things, it becomes more, and you do it
mm,
more. And, a situation that may have really annoyed you in the past, you'd actually see a positive out of it. Or a really difficult situation. If I take losing my sister, at the time
mm,
when I was in it, I couldn't see a single positive thing about it. Right. And now I have something in my head that I believe. Now, whether it's true or not is irrelevant, but the belief is that she probably would have suffered with long term COVID. She would have had long term effects. She already
mm.
had a few illnesses. So, my belief now is that she was relieved of that pain. Don't get me wrong, I feel the
No,
pain of missing her every single day, but I
mm,
do believe that she's at peace from the
yeah.
pain, and I would never have wanted to see her in pain.
So what you've done is you've reframed it. in your
Yeah.
head. The
Yeah.
whole sad situation for losing your sister and your grief, you've reframed it to think
Mm,
about how she would have not benefit, but she has been
mm,
saved and spared from
mm,
quite possible certain
mm.
pain,
Yeah.
sadness in
Yeah.
the future. And that
Yeah.
helped you to deal with it and move forward from that.
Mm, mm.
That's very interesting. I mean, you can reframe in several ways, and that, where you can almost bring yourself into saying, well, there's gratitude there.
Yeah.
That gratitude reframe for something awful,
Mm,
unthinkable that's happened is such, I mean, it's such a higher plane thing to be able to do.
yeah.
Something so bad has happened, and
Mm,
you've reframed it in your head and you've made it into something that is positive and has light, and
mm,
it's beautiful, and that is something that we can all learn from, and we can
mm.
all seek to do when we found where something awful's happened.
I think one thing I've learned, and all the trainings that, like all the stuff I've done, the self-help stuff I've done for myself, and all the other
Mm,
stuff, the one thing I've learned is I now see everything that happens to me happens for a reason. Now, we can
mm,
influence, of course we can, right? But everything happens for a reason. So if something really not good happens to me, or pretty uncomfortable, or pretty sad, or whatever happens, I always think, what was that? What did that come to me for? And it
yeah.
might be that I don't know, I'm trying to think of something in the past, for instance, when I've been applying for jobs, maybe, and I've been
Mm,
sad because I haven't got the one that I wanted. I've been averted that for a reason. I wasn't
yes.
supposed to be there. I wasn't supposed to get it. And maybe it would make me unhappy. Maybe it wasn't the job I thought it was going to be. Maybe, do you know what I mean? And I think
Yeah.
if you can reframe situations and say, okay, so that was really tough and that really upset me, okay, or whatever.
Mm,
But why did it turn out that way? What was the positive out of what's happened?
yeah.
Because the more you do that, your mindset just becomes far more positive. And we live in such a negative world, don't we, Dee? I mean, I think you'll agree with me. You turn on a TV. I mean, I
Oh,
try and avoid the news like the plague now because it's just awful. And
so
you can either join in, you have a choice. You can either join in and let that become your narrative and
mm,
bring yourself down. And actually, it affects your mental well being as well. Or you can stand aside, take the stance, be the guiding light, and everybody will then gravitate to you because we all want to feel better and positive.
yeah.
We don't want to be negative and miserable all the time. And if you do, well, maybe you need to ask yourself why you want to be negative and miserable all the time. Or maybe
Well,
you're just not even watching this.
there's something there making you negative. Maybe you don't feel like you deserve to be positive and
Abs-
happy. Maybe
yep.
you feel so low about yourself that actually
Mm,
I am going to be a miserable cow because that's what I want to be. But
mm,
actually, somewhere deep down inside, you're suffering from self worth issues and
yeah.
things that you cover. So
Yeah.
I think a lot of that nastiness on the surface, when you come to people who are negative, it comes from a place of not feeling their own self-love and their own self-worth.
And also, it's often from a place of protection. They've been
Yes.
hurt and they're
Yes.
protecting themselves from getting hurt again. But this is one thing I've learned in life as well, and as I'm sure you have, Dee, you have to experience pain to experience
Mm.
happiness.
Oh yeah. More in another episode on that one, possibly.
Yeah,
I think this
absolutely.
thing about pain and how to deal with it is a huge issue. And
Yeah.
I loved what you said about you know making things positive, and you said something a minute ago that I thought, oh, I need to talk about that, which was remind me.
I
Um,
don't know.
what,
Is it making
you
things
said?
into positives, looking at every situation and finding the positive in it?
Yes, exactly that.
Mm,
So you're looking at situations and finding positive in it, but you don't always have to. And this is where talking to a coach
yeah.
could possibly help you. You don't have to do it from your own perspective. And I
No.
do a lot of this work with people where I get them to put themselves in another person's take themselves from another person's
Yeah.
perspective, because it's such a good exercise,
Yeah.
where,
Yeah.
and you think, and they choose people that they respect, that they love, that they know
Yeah.
thinks, and I mean, I actually just did it with uh, yesterday or the day before. Oh my god, what
Mm.
day is it today? Tuesday. Yeah, just honestly, right, I did it with somebody, and I did it with a person, and I actually put her into herself, but another version of herself, the version of herself that is supporting other people around her. So she's
Mm-hmm.
supporting everybody around her, but she's not supporting herself. So I
Yeah.
said, okay,
Mm-hmm.
you are going to be you, number two. What are
Mm-hmm.
you saying to you, number one? Because
Mm.
you need that. And she was
But
like,
you know
oh,
what? With limiting beliefs, that's a really good thing to do, is to get them when they say a limiting belief. And then what I would sometimes say to them is that what your husband's saying though? Or
yeah,
is that what your mum's saying to you? Or is that what your child's, or is that what that work colleague's saying to you? Or have you built that
yeah,
into your head as a belief? And
mm,
I work a lot with bodies, images, and self worth and stuff. And it's amazing how much we put into our own head that nobody else is saying to us, and nobody else is like, but. And so when you say, right, okay, so is that what your husband says to you about your body? Well, no, he loves my body. So, okay, so hold on a minute. Okay, we've got two sides of a sword here. You just said, oh my, it's because my husband, and now you're telling me he hasn't even said that to you. But you get what I'm trying to say. I mean, whoever it is. So you're
you,
absolutely right there. That is a really good thing to help with limiting beliefs as well.
yeah. And
Mm.
going on what you said, you put words into other people's mouths that do not come out of there to support your own limiting belief. So you're creating evidence that isn't even there, because you're
Absolutely.
feeling that about yourself, and that's just low, right? Is what
Yeah.
you need to be doing is put to bring my LD stand back into it, right? You know, you you need to put positive,
Mm.
empowering words into. If you are speaking for other people, make it good,
Yeah,
right? Oh yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
is great, and
Mm.
and and then try and dispel that if you dare. It's like, do it, because it, either way,
Mm.
you're putting words into their mouths that they're not saying anyway. So you might as well make them good ones, right? If that's what you're going to listen to.
Absolutely. There's such a
But
simple negative belief, right? That we
yeah,
do so much, okay? Men and women do it, okay?
yeah,
And it's when someone says to you, praises you for doing something, or for the way you look, or for your hair, or whatever. So many people, instead of just saying, thank you, that's really nice, go, oh, God, I don't look my best today. I mean, my hair's a right mess and whatever. Or, well, I did that, but I didn't do it this way and that. And but we're always looking
I've
for the
done it.
negative.
I've done it so many times, and I'm going to stop.
And then if you can hear something and accept it, because when you don't accept it, that's when you're pushing it away, and that's when that person might think, I'm not gonna say that to them again. Then, so it has that negative effect as well, especially if it's someone who you're with a lot. If you need to be able to say, do you know what, and I
There's
need to just be able to go, thank you.
And also there's a thing about, because you might not be able to accept it because you don't believe it, because you believe
Mm,
something else. But the more you accept it,
yeah,
even if you don't believe it,
yeah.
at some point it will become something you start to believe,
And
because
that
these sorts
limiting
of
belief shifts just very
shifts,
slowly, doesn't it?
yeah, because
Yeah.
they don't happen overnight. You can't change a
No,
limiting belief, a negative thought, something that you think about yourself overnight.
no.
And there has to be, it's like you have to chip away. You have to
Mm.
chip away at that big
Some
boulder.
are easier than others. I think some
Yeah.
things are easier than others, especially when you've got something that you can dispel quite quickly with a truth, with a wholehearted truth. I think that's easier and quicker. It's
Yeah.
when it's long ingrained stuff that you have
Mm.
to fight a little bit harder and you have to push a little bit harder. But do you know what? The one thing I've learned, and I lived, a long time in really negative places, is that when you open your eyes to positivity, you see so much more in the world. Just generally, you see so much more in yourself, and you see so much more in the world and the people around you. And I think if we did that, if all of us did that more often, we'd have a much more beautiful world.
Oh, well, that's a lovely place to stop. I mean, the only thing I would add to that is that, you know what, you deserve it. So if you're listening or watching this, everything be said, and you deserve it. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think that's a wrap. Hey, what do you reckon? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
Yeah.
lovely. Thank you everyone for listening. You've had Ian for a little while, you've had B, and you've had myself, and we have really enjoyed talking about limiting beliefs over the last couple of episodes.
Let's finish on a high five to our listeners, shall we?
Yay! Or high 10. Right, love you guys. Okay, until next time, be there.
Be bear.
Be
Hold on.
naked.
Start again. Go for it.
Be there. Be there.
Be bear.
Be naked.
Be naked.